Well, joining us now on Zoom is a White House Communications Director, Ben LaBolt. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So first question we have for you today is, President Biden, we've heard reports from leaders saying he played a big role in getting the Belvidere plant to reopen with this Stellantis contract. What was the president's role exactly in those negotiations?
Well, the president played a supportive role to the auto workers. He was the first president in history to visit an active strike site when he went and stood with UAW President Shawn Fain outside of Detroit and workers as they advocated for a record contract that matched the record profits the companies have been making recently. The president also personally placed a call to the CEO of Stellantis and advocated for the reopening of this plant in Belvidere, which will create thousands of jobs, both in midsize SUV production and electric battery production.
What led the president to decide to come and visit Belvidere and the Stellantis facility here over all the other UAW facilities where deals have been reached?
Well, one of the president's principles as auto workers entered this negotiation was making sure that the jobs of the future were created here in the United States, and we'll see that with the electric battery production in Belvidere. He's also encouraged the auto companies to make sure that they were creating jobs in many of the same communities that had created autos for years as the industry starts to transition into electric vehicle production, and to make sure that workers were receiving a fair deal, that they got the wages and benefits that they deserved. And so in these contracts, you'll see over the next 4.5 years, workers will get a bigger raise than they have in decades.
Ben, as you just mentioned, Belvidere will be producing electric vehicles as well once the plant reopens. What can the Biden administration do to make EVs more affordable and accessible to middle-class Americans?
Well, there's a few things that the administration is doing. First, the president passed through Congress the largest investment in clean energy ever, which has deployed a lot of public sector investment across the country that has incentivized private sector investment in areas like electric batteries. And so as production is scaled up, you'll see much wider market adoption and prices go down for electric vehicles. That's one piece. Secondly, as part of that investment, making sure that we're creating jobs across the country by building electric vehicle charging stations to make sure that it's much more accessible to have one of these vehicles. 500,000 of those will be built across the country. They'll be built by IBEW workers, good paying union jobs. And again, as we get that distribution network up for the energy required here, that will increase adoption as well. So I think you'll see prices come down over time, but the president has put in place all the right building blocks to make that happen.
About the president's visit tomorrow, it's just some of the nuts and bolts of it. We've been receiving a lot of calls and questions about, will the president make any appearances to the public? That does not seem to be in the itinerary. Can you clarify that for us this morning?
Well, look, I think hundreds of members of the community will be present. Of course, auto workers themselves are really at the heart of this visit. And so many of the workers who will be coming back to work who are members of the UAW, and UAW President Shawn Fain will be at the heart of the event. And so a number of members of the community will experience it, but there's been a lot of demand, so we probably can't fit everybody into the site.
And finally, this morning, what is the White House's reaction to a CBS News poll released this week showing the ex-president is leading in the polls?
Well, look, I can't get into all of the campaign details as a government official, but I will say polls don't vote, voters do. And every election since President Biden has been elected president, Democrats have way outperformed expectations. If you look at the results of the midterms in 2022, if you look at the results in states across the country last night, Republicans have campaigned on an agenda of taking away individual rights and liberties. That's really an extreme agenda. The president has focused every day on bread and butter issues, making sure that workers can find a good paying job, that wages are going up, that costs are coming down, that roads and bridges are being built. And I think you're starting to see Americans react to that across the country.
Thank you for your time this morning, Ben. Ben LaHolt, Communications Director at the White House, joining us here live on the Morning Blend.